Gosh, what an absolutely
That's
massive
why we
play to
all
start
love
the
the
game.
game.
Is he going to get
Rid
the
of
one
the
shot? He
save
gets the
line.
one-hit KO!
What it is, everybody? This is Pokemon Facts, Easter Eggs, and Trivia. I know some things about Pokemon kinda, but here's some more things, so let's get started.
Did you know, back when Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire first came out, there was a demo available in Japan that featured a level 12 Sharpedo? While this may have been done solely for the purpose of the demo itself, there's speculation that Sharpedo was never intended to have a pre-evolution form at all, as Carvanha evolves into Sharpedo at level 30. The legendary beasts, Entei, Raikou, and Suicune, first appeared in Pokemon Gold and Silver and were the first roaming Pokemon to ever exist. But did you realize that Raikou's Gold and Silver sprites lack the 4-pointed star formation on its face, despite Ken Sugimori's concept art for Raikou having included the feature? This was fixed in Crystal onwards. While on the topic of the legendary beasts, the battle theme of Raikou, Entei, and Suicune exists in the coding for Ruby and Sapphire. This potentially means that one or maybe even all of them were meant to be in the 3rd generation games, perhaps as a post-Elite Four reward. Here, take a listen. How's this for another segue? Despite the legendary beast trio's lack of inclusion in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, the 2 roamers that the game did have, Latios and Latias, were affected by something known as the roaming IV glitch. In Generation 3, the data for Pokemon's IVs were stored in a 32-bit integer. However, when a roaming Pokemon is captured, only the last 8 bits are transferred, meaning that while the HP IV of these Pokemon could be any normal value, the highest attack IV either of these Pokemon could have was a 7, and all other IVs would always be 0. Did you also know that Ho-Oh, Lugia, and their roosts, the Tin Tower and Brass Tower, were actually inspired by 2 real temples found in Japan? The temple that inspired Ho-Oh and Tin Tower is known as Kinkakuji and has a golden avian ornament placed on top of it. Similarly, the temple that inspired Lugia and the Brass Tower is called Ginkakuji and has a silver avian ornament placed on top of it. In the game's events, Brass Tower burns down 150 years before the player arrives. What's strange, however, is that in their real-life counterparts, Kinkakuji Temple, or Tin Tower, is the tower that burned down out of the 2, after having been set on fire by a 22-year-old schizophrenic monk in 1950. Remember the pain of having to walk around everywhere, dying to get the running shoes? How about that relief when you finally pick up your bike? Well, there were plans to have a skateboard introduced for Generation 2. Unlike the bike, it allowed the player to access new and exciting places. Though it never made it into the final cut of the game, the Acro Bike in Generation 3 possibly borrowed some ideas from this concept, such as areas accessible only when you did tricks. Cloyster's red and blue sprites show its shell positioned horizontally rather than vertically. I mean, at least this way it looks a lot less like a... well, you know. Many English players infer that Looker, the spy from the Pokemon games, is named Looker due to the fact that he is a police officer spying on Team Galactic and thus looking at them, investigating crime. But this is actually incorrect. In the Japanese version of the game, Looker's name can be translated as handsome, and so Looker was named Looker due to his good looks, as opposed to it being a reference to his occupation. How about one more sprite fact? The Frill on Breloom sprites is a different size in Generation 3, 4, and 5. Only finally do Breloom's frills match between the 5th and 6th generations. According to Ken Sugimori, Snivy and its evolutions, Servine and Superior, are based on the appearance of French nobility, primarily drawing inspiration from the anime Rose of Versailles. And to round out our facts for the day, Pikachu is a lovable little guy, but did you know that Raichu, after having stored high amounts of electricity in its body, actually glows in the dark? Best flashlight ever. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to leave a like or even a comment. Both of those are pretty amazing. And if you really liked what you saw and you think you could put up with me again, maybe even hit that subscribe button. Either way, thanks so much for watching, and see you guys next time on Pokemon Feet.
Who's that Pokemon?
Foot.
Zeb Striker!
Foot.